Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years. We're dedicated to delivering quality auto parts, expert customer service, fast and free shipping, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. We've created thousands of videos to help you install our parts with confidence, and that saves you time and money. So visit us at 1aauto.com, your trusted source for quality auto parts.
In this video, we're going to be working with our 1998 Toyota Camry 2.2-liter 4-cylinder. We're going to show you how to remove and replace your exhaust manifold. This particular one does not have the catalytic converter in the manifold. However, these steps should be fairly similar for that style cat as well. If you like this video, please click subscribe. We have a ton more information on this and many other vehicles. And if you need parts for your car, you can follow the link down in the description over to 1aauto.com. Here are the items you'll need for this repair. Open the hood and secure the hood prop. There are 5 12mm bolts securing the upper heat shield onto our exhaust manifold. We're going to spray those with some penetrating oil to help try to free them up. However, it's not super important because in changing the manifold, we can change the heat shield over as long as we get the heads off the bolts when they break. These bolts tend to break because they get really hot and then cool down very frequently every time you turn the vehicle on and off. These have been in here for just about 18 years now, so it's safe to assume that they're probably in there pretty tight. We'll take them out, if we can, with a 12mm socket, ratchet, and extension. Once the last bolt's out, remove the heat shield from the manifold. Now the nuts and studs that secure the manifold onto the head are pretty rusty. We have one down here under the alternator, 2 at the top, 1 in this corner, and 2 more underneath the heat shield in the center. The best way to remove these is with heat. Now it can be a little tricky getting in there with a torch, or you may not have a torch at home. So the best way to do it is to heat them up naturally by running the engine, letting it get up to temp, and then carefully removing the bolts so you don't burn yourself. Be sure to use a long extension to keep your hands away from the hot exhaust, but it is crucial that you remove these bolts while they are hot, because it makes them a lot easier to remove, and you don't want to break bolts off in the cylinder head. So those are very difficult to remove. You may consider wearing some protective gloves since your hands are going to be so close to the hot exhaust and you don't want to risk getting burned. Move the teeth off of this clamp that secures the O2 sensor wire in place. See, they just kind of interlock there. Unplug the O2 sensor connector. Use an O2 sensor socket to remove the oxygen sensor from the manifold. Again, the exhaust is hot, so be careful not to hurt yourself with that. Remove the oxygen sensor from the manifold. Remove the 14mm nut on the passenger side of the manifold with a 14mm socket, ratchet, and extension. Remove the 14mm nut on this side of the exhaust manifold here at the driver's side and loosen this one so we can hang the bracket out of the way. For this, we'll use a 14mm socket and ratchet. I cannot believe that. Just a couple of turns and the bracket should fall right out of your way. Raise and support your vehicle. We're using a lift to make it easier to show you, but this job can easily be done in the driveway on a jack and jack stands. Remove the 3 14mm nuts on the front pipe flange at the bottom of the exhaust manifold with a 14mm socket, extension, and ratchet. Using a 14mm wrench, remove the bolt securing the exhaust manifold bracket in on the passenger side. You can't really get at this with a ratchet, unfortunately, but if you have a ratcheting wrench, now is a great opportunity to use it. You can go ahead and remove the bracket from the exhaust. Now you can wait until your exhaust manifold cools down before removing it, but we're going to use a pair of welding gloves to take it off since it's still a little hot. Simply pull back and lift up to remove the manifold from the vehicle. Remove the gasket from the head and toss that out since we can't reuse it and our kit comes with a new one. If you're reusing your old exhaust manifold for any reason, you'll want to make sure you clean all the old rust and corrosion off of the mating surface to the cylinder head. This can be done a few different ways. You can use a cookie wheel, some sandpaper, or just a good size steel wired brush to get all that corrosion off of there. Spray some brake clean onto a clean rag or a paper towel. Wipe down the mating surface on the cylinder head. You want to do the best you can here, but you don't really want to use anything abrasive or spray any cleaners directly onto it because there's a risk of it getting down into the cylinder head and damaging the valves or something worse inside of the engine. Make sure you get all your paper towel shreds out of there too. Install your new exhaust gasket onto the cylinder head. If you're reusing your old front pipe, ours has been changed recently. You want to make sure you clean that surface off before installing your new gasket. Reinstall your exhaust manifold onto the cylinder head as well as into the 3 studs on the up pipe. It's usually easiest to do the up pipe first. Reinstall your hardware onto the manifold. In our case, we had 4 out of the 6 14mm nuts come off of the studs, but on the 2 bottom center ones under the heat shield, the stud came out with the nut. That's perfectly fine. We just have to make sure that we reinstall those into the same holes they came out of. Once all the hardware is back in, go ahead and tighten it down with a 14mm socket, ratchet, and extension. Because of the material these gaskets are made out of, you want to make sure you get that hardware down as tight as you can safely. Reinstall the brace onto the stud at the bottom of the manifold. Don't tighten the nut down on it yet because we'll want to make sure that the up pipe is tightened to the manifold. Reinstall the 3 14mm nuts on the studs for the up pipe. You may have to start tightening one down a little to settle the other ones in before you can get them started. Line up the bracket for the manifold. Reinstall the 14mm bolt. Get that down as tight as you can by hand. Just remember, we'll have to finish tightening it up with a wrench. Make sure you tighten the bolt down using a 14mm wrench. Reinstall the 14mm nut onto the stud. Tighten that down with a socket ratchet and extension. Reposition the bracket on the driver's side. Once you've got the bolt started into the exhaust manifold, you can tighten down both bolts with a 14mm socket and ratchet. Reinstall the O2 sensor into the bung on the bottom of the manifold. Tighten it down with your O2 sensor socket. Reconnect the electrical connector. And reinstall the plastic retainer on the line. Simply clicks back together. Reinstall the heat shield and start all 5 12mm bolts by hand. Once the bolts have been started, tighten them down with a 12mm socket, ratchet, and extension.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.